All right, good evening and welcome to Just the News. I'm standing in for Amita, who's on leave for the next 1 week. So I'll be bringing you the news on a daily basis. Today, we're going to start with all of the information on COVID at this point. The Health Ministry has said the positivity rate in India for COVID has gone up from 1.1% it was on the 30th of December to 11.05% it is today, and that is quite a jump. The ministry has also said that there are 300 districts across the country where the positivity rate is more than 5%. Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Paul has said, and I quote, that Omicron is not the common cold. It is not to be taken lightly. We need to be vigilant, get vaccinated and follow COVID-appropriate behavior. He said vaccination is an important pillar in our COVID response program. Just to take a look at the numbers right now, India reported 1.94 lakh cases. So that's 1,94,720 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. A massive jump of, more than 26,000 from yesterday. India's active caseload now is 9 lakh, and of which we have 4,896 Omicron cases. Mumbai is showing some interesting numbers as well. Remember, we were at 20,000 cases a day in Mumbai. It came down to 11,000. It's gone back up now to 16,420 new cases in the last 24 hours. Now, the BMC commissioner, the municipality commissioner, has put out an explanation saying that because the testing guidelines were changed 2 days ago, saying that you should only test people with symptoms, the positivity rate has gone up because obviously people with symptoms are more likely to have COVID. It doesn't, of course, explain the rise in the numbers from 11,000 to 16,000. Delhi reported 27,561 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. That's a 29% bump up from yesterday. So Delhi is still showing a sharp increase. Positivity rate in Delhi is 26%, which means 1 in every 4 people getting tested in our national capital are testing positive. Bangalore's numbers are also sharp. 15,670 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. That's up from about 14,400 that was reported yesterday. Kerala is the other problem. Kerala reporting 12,742 new cases in the last 24 hours with a positivity rate of 17.5%. In the meantime, the Prime Minister, speaking at an event, said that nearly 2 crore children between the ages of 15 and 18 have been vaccinated since the 3rd of January. Delhi's health minister has said that if the COVID cases do come down over the next 2 or 3 days, restrictions will be lifted. Delhi reported, like I told you, 27,561 cases. The health minister told reporters that hospitalization rates have stabilized, cases have plateaued, there are still several vacant beds in the city, end quote. The government has announced that it will administer COVID booster shots to senior citizens and differently abled people with limited mobility at their homes as well. The central government has written to state and union territories asking them to boost their medical oxygen facilities because of the rise in COVID cases. The Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan has directed that all districts should ensure oxygen concentrators supplied to them are fully functional. The central government has also asked state governments that liquid medical oxygen tanks at the health facilities should be sufficiently filled and an uninterrupted supply chain must be ensured. The central government has also revised its discharge policy for COVID patients. Now, patients will be categorized based on symptoms into mild or moderate. So someone with mild symptoms will get discharged after 7 days, having experienced no fever for 3 days. Someone with moderate symptoms, if the oxygen saturation is greater than 93% for 3 consecutive days, they will then be discharged based on the advice of the treating medical officer. If a patient's symptoms do not resolve and they continue to need oxygen support, they will only be discharged after their oxygen saturation hits the prescribed level for 3 consecutive days. Other news from our country right now, not COVID related. The Supreme Court has issued a notice to the Uttarakhand government responding to a PIL that was filed before the court seeking prosecution of those involved in making hate speeches at the Haridwar Dharm Sansad that we saw happen. The petitioners had asked the court for a direction for an independent, credible and impartial investigation by an SIT into the incidents of hate speeches against a community. The petition was filed against the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Commissioner of Police, Delhi, and the Director General of Police, Uttarakhand. Remember, videos had surfaced of hate speeches made by a group of people against specifically the Muslim community in two separate events that took place simultaneously in Haridwar and Delhi on December 17th and 21st. The Uttarakhand police had registered FIRs against 5 people, but we hadn't seen any arrests take place. The PIL now asking the Supreme Court to take action. In politics, one day after he resigned from the BJP to join Akhilesh Yadav Samajwadi Party, former Yogi Adityanath cabinet minister now faces an arrest warrant that has been issued against him in a 7-year-old case. Now, this is BJP minister Swami Prasad Maurya. Maurya faces arrest over a hate speech case that was dates back 2014. At the time, he was a member of the Bahujan Samaj Party of Mayawati. So he has now moved 3 parties in 7 years. He had made a statement basically saying that the worship of various gods and goddesses is a conspiracy by the upper caste dominated system to mislead and enslave Dalits. He is now, that was made 7 years ago, that statement. He has now had an arrest warrant put out against him in that case. The earlier warrant that was put on hold by the Allahabad High Court back in 2016, and since there were many hearings in the case, a Sultanpur court asked him to appear today. When he did not, the court renewed the warrant against him. He now has to appear before the court on the 24th of January. The Supreme Court has also appointed former Supreme Court Justice Indu Malhotra to head a committee to inquire into the alleged security lapse during the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Punjab back on the 5th of January. The committee will look into the causes of the security breach that left the Prime Minister's convoy stuck on the flyover for 15 to 20 minutes while it was on its way to an event that was a few kilometers away from the Pakistan border. Other members of the committee are the Director General of the NIA, the Director General of the Police in Chandigarh, the Additional Director General of the Police in Punjab, and the Registrar General of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. The Supreme Court also today has said the word dowry ought to be applied in a wider interpretation to include any demand made on a woman, whether in respect with property, valuable security of any nature, and held that any demand for money for constructing a home as well comes under the ambit of dowry. The court, I beg your pardon, set aside a verdict by the Madhya Pradesh High Court in which it acquitted the husband and the father-in-law for a dowry death on the grounds that the victim herself had asked her family members to contribute money to construct a house, which cannot be treated as dowry. The Supreme Court has disagreed and said that even if there is a demand of money to build a house, that is also a demand for dowry. Also, in behavior that's not COVID appropriate, the Karnataka Congress. The Karnataka High Court pulled up the Karnataka government and issued a show cause notice to the Congress party in Karnataka for its Padyatra, the Mekadatu Padyatra, asking how it could be allowed in this COVID pandemic situation. The bench questioned as to why the rally was being allowed at all in the middle of the rising pandemic and why the government was incapable of taking action. The bench also directed the government to clarify by the 14th of January the action it had taken to prevent this rally being held by the Congress party. Visuals of this rally, as you can see, are extremely worrying because of the large crowds of people who have gathered and the various districts within which this rally is scheduled to move, given the fact that Karnataka is reporting high numbers of COVID right now. The High Court, while hearing a PIL by Nagendra Prasad seeking directions from the court to stop the rally, put out these directions. The Mekadatu Padyatra began on the 9th of January, taken up by the Karnataka Pradesh Congress Committee President Dr. D.K. Shivkumar, I beg your pardon, to demand speedy implementation of the Mekadatu project, which will supply drinking water to the city of Bengaluru. There's a lot of drama on Sundays when officials who visited Shivkumar later tested positive for coronavirus. Shivkumar alleged that the officials were deliberately sent by the government to infect him. So a lot of political drama on the ground, but in the middle of a pandemic might not be the best time for it. And the High Court asking very pertinent questions as to why the government has found itself unable to stop the Congress party from gathering these large crowds. News coming in right now from the world of business and economy. According to the Ministry of Statistics, India's retail inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index was 5.59% in December. That's a 5-month high. Meanwhile, India's factory output, which is what our manufacturing looks like in terms of the industrial production, saw a very marginal growth of 1.4% for November. The Consumer Price Index basically measures a certain basket of goods that we as citizens have to buy on a monthly basis simply to survive, and it measures the increase in that basket. 5.6%, which is where we are right now, is not a comfortable position to be, especially given our unemployment situation as well, which means people are unemployed, but things are getting more expensive. Let's take a look at news coming in right now from across the world. Taking a look specifically at the COVID information, according to the WHO, Omicron is quickly overtaking Delta as the dominant variant around the world. Global health agencies have been cautioning that there is an increase in evidence that Omicron is able to evade immunity, but less disease severity compared to other variants. WHO's official has said, and I quote, Omicron has been detected in all countries where we have good sequencing. It is likely to be in all countries around the world right now. It is quickly, in terms of circulation, overtaking Delta, and so Omicron is becoming the dominant variant that is being detected, end quote. Canada's province of Quebec has imposed a new health tax in the coming weeks for those who are not vaccinated against COVID. This comes after Canada witnessed a huge surge in the number of cases. Only about 12.8% of Quebec's residents are not vaccinated, but they make up half the hospital cases right now. On Tuesday, Quebec's death toll from COVID was 12,028 altogether. Germany and Austria are witnessing a record-breaking surge in COVID cases as well. Germany reported 80,430 COVID cases and 384 deaths. Austria reported 18,427 cases. A Bloomberg report has said that Spain has become the first European country to call its citizens to start treating COVID as an endemic disease like the flu. It is further suggesting that people learn to live with it. In an interview, the Spanish Prime Minister said, and I quote, "We have to evaluate the evolution of COVID from pandemic to endemic illnesses." The British Education Secretary on Sunday told the BBC that the UK is on its path from transitioning from pandemic to endemic. Endemic is where an infection is constantly maintained at a baseline level in a certain geography. So, for example, like the flu that comes and goes once a year, these countries are of the opinion that COVID has now become flu-like, something that we can live with. Outside of COVID, North Korea state media has reported that the country has conducted another hypersonic missile test under the watch of its leader Kim Jong-un. According to BBC, the missile successfully made to turn before hitting its target in the sea, some 1,000 kilometers away. This is the third hypersonic missile test the country has conducted. Earlier, 6 countries, including the US, issued a joint statement condemning last week's apparent test, urging North Korea to cease its actions in the region. Also, some action from India, and this is in our science section. The DRDO, so India's Defence and Research Development Organization, on Tuesday successfully flight tested the final deliverable configuration of the man-portable anti-tank guided missile. Indigenously developed in India, the missile is low weight, a fire-forget missile that is launched from a portable launcher and integrated with thermal sight. DRDO also announced that India has successfully test-fired an advanced sea-to-sea variant of BrahMos, our supersonic cruise missile, from INS Visakhapatnam on Tuesday. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said the successful launch reconfirmed the robustness of Indian Navy's mission readiness, end quote. Let's take a look at news coming in from the world of sports. The most interesting development is still on tennis star Djokovic in Australia, who admitted that there were some errors on his immigration form. He said that he met a journalist despite testing positive for COVID, and he made an error of judgment in leaving his COVID isolation to take a newspaper interview because he didn't want to let the journalist down. He said he was socially distanced and he wore a mask except for when his photograph was taken. He attributed the travel declaration document mistake to human error on behalf of his agent. On the form, he had said he had not traveled for 14 days before his flight to Australia, but reports now claim that he was seen in Spain in that 2 weeks period as well. And one piece of positive news before we leave you for the day: Lakshadweep has achieved 100% COVID vaccination of children in the age group of 15 to 18, becoming the first among states and union territories to achieve this feat. 2 thumbs up for the people of Lakshadweep. That's where we're going to leave you here on the news. Remember, tomorrow we're going to bring you a conversation on what's happening in Uttar Pradesh and how that's likely to play out in the elections and all of the other state elections that are coming up. Given, of course, the looming COVID numbers, is this something that we should be concerned? We're going to talk about the Uttar Pradesh elections and all of the politics on our YouTube page tomorrow. For now, this is the news. Thank you for watching. Good night.